rising up, back in the gym. We took our time, we took our chances. We went the distance, we took it to failure. Now we're pumped up right now, just two men and their will to build muscle. So many times it happens so fast. You get hit by a car or you lose your focus. But you can't lose your grip on the long-term path now. You've gotta keep lifting to progress and build muscle. It's the improvement season. It's the thrill of the mass. Rising up with Mike and Steve, no denial. And the last no natty stands strong in the light. And he's lifting it all with Revive Stronger. How was that?
I feel like I need like an applause button that's like clap, 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 clap.
Yay!
Oh my gosh, Mike, I can't even imagine how long that took you to script. Or hey, honest, did ChatGPT help you?
Maybe. Just a
This,
little bit. This is the
that's
first time,
so
by the way.
funny. That's the first time you've used chat.
Yeah.
So funny. It's the perfect thing to ask it to do, right? Because it's like, yeah. What can I say? I'm sorry, I just took away from your thunder a little bit there.
No, gotta stay
To
honest.
be fair, you take the singing serious as well. It's not like you're just like talking it through. You're getting into the vocals there.
You've got to commit. You've got to commit, otherwise it's rubbish.
And that's why I'm never doing it. Because I will not commit. It will be rubbish. This is me like at school, languages. Like they try and get you to do I am sure you did it with the accent, like when you have like German and French. I was just like, I just couldn't do the accent. So I was just doing it as like an English person, right? Like, Guten Tag. Well, I almost did a little bit of an accent then. But some things you can't quite help doing it. But yeah. Je ne sais pas is what I always remember. It's like, I don't know. Ich weiß nicht. I don't know. It's like they're the two sayings I committed to learning because I was just like, everything else, then, hey, I don't need to know.
But it's stuck clearly because you remember it.
Yeah, it's weird. That's like, yeah, I don't know how my memory works. Some things just stay and that's why I'm worried, like PIN codes and passwords. I'm like, if you put one in, it shoves one out. I don't know what I'm going to lose.
Yeah. But there's so many pins and passwords now. It's just absolutely absurd. So
yes. So, Mike, how are you doing? And by the way, for the listeners and the lookers, there's a few people that thought you were in hospital last week, which I can't blame them completely because you were wearing a hospital gown. Your room obviously looks quite medical.
I know, it looks very sterile, doesn't it? I'm like, oh no, I've got to change that. But no, I was not in a hospital last week. I was in my normal room. As you can see, I'm either still in the hospital or I'm in my room. I'm in my room. But no, I'm doing good actually. It's been a sore week, I will say. Just it's funny because on the day it happened, you've still got a lot of adrenaline going, and a lot of the effects of like some of the injuries haven't really taken hold. And then, like in the following days, you realize like, ah, man, this area of my body is sore, and I didn't even know it was sore at the time. And then the inflammation catches up with you as well, and like my foot honestly has been the biggest issue. Just it got really swollen. And it wasn't necessarily a problem I had a decent amount of dorsiflexion in order to like, get a little bit of knees over toes and to do some like a decent squat pattern, but walking has been a real challenge. I just can't, I'm still limping a little bit. But I feel like I don't want to talk too soon, but today I've been kind of moving around and I've been like, I actually don't feel quite as sore
Awesome.
today. So I feel like and it makes sense, right? Because this is literally a week post injury, so 7 days. So it makes sense now that hopefully things should start to be settling down from an inflammatory perspective, which is great.
Yeah, the only recent experience I've had is obviously getting tattooed. And it's funny because I was talking to one of my clients, Kieran, shout out if he listens to this. He's heavily tattooed. He just competed this year. You'll know exactly who I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah, yeah.
And we were having a message back and forth. I was like, dude, I think I've got away with not getting my foot's not inflamed at all. Like, I don't know, this tattoo artist, he just doesn't cause as much trauma to my leg. And then, like, I don't know how long it took, but the inflammation all kicked in and my ankle was as swollen as ever. So it is funny that there is that delayed effect to like inflammation and swelling and everything. So yeah, that sucks though. I imagine it's also painful to walk on, right? But it's not just uncomfortable, it's actually painful, right?
Definitely. It's just the worst bit was actually the end of the day because when I was in bed, I would have my foot propped up on cushions. So I'd have the weight off of the foot and it would feel better. So in the mornings, it didn't feel too bad. But by 4, 5 o'clock, it was really sore, really, really sore. And it's just, it feels like I can't explain it. It's just tight. Your toe just feels like tingling and just uncomfortable. And you know it's not anything bad, but it's just uncomfortable. But the great thing is, and I've from my previous bike accident as well, and from any other injury, you just know it's going to run its course. You just know that, right, it hurts right now, but I know it's because it's inflamed, but I know it's going to improve over time, and kind of just got to keep telling yourself that.
Yeah, you just have to kind of take every day as it comes, and as every day passes, you suddenly get to points like you had that realization where you're just like, oh, it's kind of better now. You can't rush the process. You just have to go through it. It reminds me of like recovery post show. It's something obviously, well, Kieran's one of them, and also Jake, who I checked in with today, and they're in their recovery phase. And Jake's now 8 weeks, and we're just reflecting on like how normal is he now in terms of like hunger and energy levels. And some really cool actually discussions came out from that was like, how do we define normal? And I was like, well, I think normal for your average person hunger wise is you get hungry for meals, but once you finish the meal, you're pretty satisfied. And he also said that he's got to this point where if he needs to fit something in, for example, like a meal out or whatever, it's now no longer a major stress for him. He can make some smaller modifications to his day and he can have a meal out like that. And I think that's a great representation of what I define as normal off-season hunger management and things. And same with energy, it was a case of like if he needs to. I had this example of, I don't know, I needed to get something from the loft upstairs. It's like going up 2 flights of stairs and I'm like sat on the sofa downstairs. If that's now no longer really much effort, it's just like, oh, that's annoying, but yeah, cool, I'll go do it. And I don't even really think twice about it. That's like normal, where small day to day activities aren't like a task anymore, where you just have kind of energy. But it takes time to get there. You can't just do that off. You can't just, as we know during post show, you can't just gain loads of body fat within a week or 2 weeks and expect to feel normal. You might have normal levels of off season body fat, but physiology takes time to recover. So anyway, I had to bring that back to bodybuilding somehow. Not that yours
No,
isn't bodybuilding.
no, of course. But do you know what? It made me also think about that's where experience takes away from the pain of it all because you know that, oh, I know that it's just going to run its course. So you're kind of just chill and you accept it that much more easily. Whereas when you've never gone through it before, you don't know. And so you want to rush things or whatever. So again, it's the value of experience.
And I know I drew you up a 6 day per week plan. So you're on a like push, pull, push, pull, push, pull, training legs every day, basically, although not like it's quads 3 times a week, hamstrings 3 times a week. How so far has that been for you? I guess, and I knew this, and we said during your check in, it was always going to be interesting navigating it yourself because I think we often take for granted how much we use bits and pieces of our body to stabilize. So even if you say, you don't need your upper body to train your legs. It's like, well, you kind of do. At least you got one arm because if you had neither, it would have been a real, a real struggle.
Massively. And to be honest, I wasn't I don't know why, but it just didn't really cross my mind. But immediately when, even doing something like a calf raise, you've got your hands somewhere to support. And even something like that, you just feel off and you have to, yeah, it's such a weird sensation. You've just got to readjust a little bit and find it all again. And you said to me, it's like, it is just totally different exercises. It's treating them as, totally rechanging your technique in a way. And that's a little bit what it felt like. And I feel like now that I'm starting to get there a little bit. But it's, I think, firstly, for anybody that has had an injury, one of the sort of biggest things that adds to, I guess, the suffering or the, turmoil that someone goes through is uncertainty. And having a plan for anybody like us, or that's more of that athlete mindset, having a plan just is a big game changer, because you're like, right, I know what I need to do. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And, this is how I'm moving forwards. So having that plan in place was just brilliant for me. And just knowing that you're doing something, like I said to you in the check-in, but I can't explain it. But immediately, as soon as I started doing some calf raises and I did that first set, I was just happy. I felt I was being productive. I felt like I was training. My body felt better. I genuinely, I could be wrong. I genuinely feel that training is helping me because I'm exercising, I'm moving my body. It might not be directly related to the shoulder, but I'm moving my body in some way. I'm being healthy. I just think it's good things. So yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, I can totally see that. During your time training, has there been any um, questionable moments where you've been, oh shit, or moments where you have ended up hurting you a little bit, or have you been fine?
Do you know what? It's actually been more outside of the gym. So, because
Probably
the thing
so
is,
aware of it in the gym, right, that you have to be careful, I guess.
exactly. So when I'm in the gym, most of the time, I tend to keep the sling on just to make sure that I don't do stupid things. But this morning was a great example. So I was waiting for the bus, and I sat down and my gym bag was next to me with my water bottle, and my water bottle started to fall out of the bag, and I instinctively went to grab it with my left hand, and immediately, like, I got pain in my shoulder, and I was just like, oh. um but you know and I hear it with patients all the time, but those are the sorts of things that happen, whereas the gym has been okay.
That's good. At least those things are relatively like nebulous, whereas stuff in the gym could be like much more severe. It's smart to kind of have that feedback of it being wrapped or what have you, where it's just like, it kind of gives you that biofeedback. It's like, oh, this is different. This is, and I completely agree with you too. And I think that's good feedback for anyone who is injured or doing things differently to before. A lot of people like to compare, even like lifts from years ago. It's like, has your technique changed? Are you in a different body comp right now? Like, lots of things change. So it's similar to me with my leg pressing and hack squatting at the moment. It's two movements I'm still doing that I was doing before, but my technique's different on them, and I'm pre-fatiguing with leg extensions. So because there was a moment where I was thinking, oh man, I'm using quite a lot less weight and less reps for this hack squat I'm doing. And I was like, Steve, you're going into this with 4 sets of leg extensions ahead of you, and you're controlling the end range more than you were previously, and also not taking as much rest up at the top that you might have previously. So it's like, just have to treat it as a complete, like, it's the same lift, but it's completely different. It's funny, I try and see people equate their like barbell back squat to like a hack squat. It's like, it's a completely different lift at that point, or even a Smith machine to a free weight squat. It's like, it's completely different. So everything has to be this, or basically the same, to be able to compare it. And that even includes like exercise order and things like this.
Do you know what? You just reminded me, when I was younger and I was training in a gym, there was these two guys who are kind of like the gym strong people, and they were taking steroids and stuff, and they were saying like, oh well, if your barbell bench is this, then you should be pressing this with the dumbbells. And I could never figure out, I was never quite as strong on the dumbbells as I was on the bench, and it just really got into my head, and I thought something was wrong, and I'm just like, Mike, what are you doing? Don't worry
It's
about it.
people, yeah, people think it though. I don't know why people can't seem to realize like there's just, it just is a completely different lift, and don't even worry about comparing it. It ultimately actually doesn't matter either. I can't think of a reason that it would necessarily matter, especially for bodybuilding. So, any other news on your end? How's that, anything else in life? I know there's been some knock-on effects, not just to your lifting, but also life just generally, right?
Yeah, it was really, I kind of knew it might happen. I spoke to the people at the clinic where I work, and I just said, look, I'm not going to be at full capacity. Like my brain is still fully functioning. I'm good in mood and stuff, but I can't, I've only got one hand, so I'm not going to be able to do any kind of hands-on work or anything very physical. I can go through rehab and exercises and I can talk with people about things, but any kind of hands-on right now, I'm really limited. And unfortunately, it took a real hit on my caseload, to the point where on Tuesday, like no one was booked in, and so I just ended up having the day off, which sounds great, but it triggered like a probably one of the first real low points. Like I had a real moment where I felt low in mood because I felt like, thoughts of like, oh, I've got no purpose, like I'm worthless, like this is all pointless. I've got nothing to do. Just those sorts of negative thoughts, which just for a moment just kind of trigger a bit of a low patch. But obviously I got straight back out of it again. But yeah, so unfortunately it has taken a hit on my clinic load a little bit, and I am having to take the bus and stuff. And I totally get the comments people are making and that you've made to me as well. So I need to, and a patient mentioned this to me as well, just getting in contact with a lawyer, just for compensation, because it is starting to make me think, hey, I have missed out on quite a bit of money, and I probably will do for a couple of weeks now.
Yeah, it's one thing thinking about just the physical toll it's had on your body, but then when you do add up all of that, and especially like your bike was destroyed, your headphones were destroyed, but then the long term consequence of days off work, like this suddenly becomes probably towards thousands that it could be taking away from you, like totally, let alone all the physical like aspects that it might have had. So yeah, I think it's one of those things that you don't have to deal with until you have to deal with it, right? Like I've never had to do that. It's similar, even like insurance in general. I can't say insurance is a scam like 100%, but I often feel like insurance is a scam. Similarly to phone cases, I sometimes think are a scam. I spent quite a lot of money on my old phone case, and I spent like a tenth of the price on this silicone case. It does exactly the same thing as far as I'm concerned. There's like very expensive phone cases, but regardless, I'm kind of going on a tangent. But with Ada and hers, like I get insured. We had pet insurance just as like a should have pet insurance. And now I'm like, man, I wish we had the top tier pet insurance because that would be really handy right now. But at least we have something. So it's like, and I've not had to fill out forms and do the whole debacle till now. Actually, we're similar because our flight got delayed and we had a day taken away from our holiday to the Maldives. And again, had to try and go through insurance, and there's so many terms and conditions, and we basically barely got any compensation for that. So that's why I often feel like insurance is a scam. But he's insured, so even if he isn't insured, there's definitely some compensation that should be coming your way. All that being said, it's good you're talking to a well, yeah. I suppose you haven't spoken to a lawyer yet, but you're going to get in
Yeah.
touch.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got, actually, on a slightly different note, I've got my fracture clinic appointment tomorrow. So they'll re-x-ray the shoulder just to check, hey, does everything look okay from a healing perspective? Check it's not gone out of alignment or anything. So that would be nice, I think. And if it's still, undisplaced, still in good alignment, etc., then that's really good news. And hopefully we can keep pushing forwards and go from there, which would be awesome.
Yeah, you said 4 to 6 weeks. Did you previously for
It,
like most of the recovery to be done?
it's going to be, well, in theory. So the doctor last week, he said 3 months. And I was like, no, no, in my head.
Right,
um,
right, okay. I was going to
if
say
I,
that's pretty ballsy of you, Mike.
I know, I know, but
No, mate.
but I think I'm hoping it's going to be 6 weeks, and I know that that probably is pushing it because for an injury like this, it is between 6 to 12 weeks. But I have confidence, given how I'm feeling now. As soon as I can start moving this shoulder actively, like I'll be off to the races. I feel so. Yeah, I'm hoping it's going to be more towards the 6 week mark.
And the good thing is we have tools at our disposal where we can generate a hypertrophic stimulus without loading the joints particularly heavy, like BFR basically, which you've already been using. And I think there is actual data on, like, if you, often it was thought like, hey, you're cuffing obviously the upper arm below the delt, so it's only really you're only occluding the limb below that, so it's only for arm training really that it can be useful. But there is data, I believe, looking at using BFR for like muscles the other side of the limb. So I think you can actually, there could be potential to use it for like lateral raises and things. It's still probably going to be beneficial for that. At least I'm pretty sure I've seen that has happened.
Amazing. Oh,
Yeah.
again, there's so many tools at our disposal, like you said. Yeah,
Do you have
it.
eStim available to you?
I do.
Oh, have you
Behind
got
me.
one?
Yeah, I've got one. So,
Can you already start using that?
well, not. I'm not using it. I don't know if you can see this,
Yes.
but I'm not using it on my delt because I don't want the contraction to affect the healing just so soon. But I've been using it on my pec,
Oh.
so just lightly. So yeah, it's an option.
Apparently, it can get pretty uncomfortable, which makes sense because without discomfort doesn't come stress. Without stress doesn't come overload and adaptation, you know?
Yeah, you get used to it. You definitely get used to it, but it's still like, uh,
Is it the same thing as like, it feels like something that was advertised a long time ago, but I think Ronaldo used to advertise these like things you put on your abs to contract your abs. Is it the same thing?
I think it is the same thing.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, because I just remember everyone bashing those, but I guess they're bashing them from a perspective of really to see your abs, you need to lose body fat, and it's not doing that. But it could contract your abs and make them thicker. I just guess the dose you need of that for any significant amount is like you would just train your abs more. Like it's more effective to go to the gym and do some like weighted crunches versus wearing this e-stim for however long you'd need to.
It's I guess I could only answer it from an injury perspective. So when a muscle is really inhibited because of pain, swelling, or it's just not being used, like I guess almost disuse atrophy, and that neurological connection has been lost, that is where it's great because it's just bypassing the circuit essentially and forcing it to contract. And but it's not, and that's why kind of I think you mentioned it as well with people like Jared Feather. It's kind of helping that mind muscle connection. So if there's an area of your body where you just can't get it, you can't connect with it as such, it can really help you feel it so that you can then enhance the exercise itself. But I don't think it's better. It's obviously not better,
Yeah.
than any kind of training.
Yeah, I think I saw Jared. He was doing like lat pull downs and stuff with the e-stim because it's an area of his back that he struggled with, is getting like that width through the lats. So yeah, it's interesting for sure. And I think he said he got like very sore in that area as well, which makes sense. It was a novel stress, right? And novelty is what drives soreness. So hey,
And I do just want to say this is a complete topic changer, but I've been progressing with Hunter x Hunter, and I the it's getting good. It's getting better now.
where
So
are you?
I'm on episode 60, I
That's not
think.
going to help me. You're going to
Okay.
have to tell me like the what's going on.
Okay, so basically they've got the auction. So the Spider Gang have come onto the scene. Okay.
Damn, so you're pretty deep. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and Karapaka is working for the family, for this family who with the um fortune teller girl. And but there was this really cool fight scene between Killua's dad and granddad and the leader of the Spider Gang. Do you remember that?
Yes, yes, yeah. It's like an iconic scene
It was
for
so
sure.
good. I was like, this is great. And the fight seems to have dropped off a tiny bit for a little bit, but it's coming back. I'm now the last episode that I watched was that uh basically the leader of the Spider Gang got captured by Karapaka, but then they did a prisoner exchange thing, and this woman who could read memories, she died, and I'm kind of like around that point.
Has
Oh, and
Karapika done his like really badass thing yet? I don't think he's quite done it yet.
I don't think so, but
Okay.
Killua has just started to develop the lightning.
Yes.
He's just developing that now, and they're kind of harnessing that because this guy has bought Greed Island, and they want to be hunters to go into the game, but they're like, no, you're not good enough, so they're training now to get good enough.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I know exactly where you are. Yeah. That's part of the my tattoo. The like lightning round Killua is it was taken from like him having that skill set. So yeah, I'm glad you're enjoying it. I think it does continue to get better as you go through it, and you'll get to like the ant arc, which is it's an interesting arc. I didn't love it the first time. The second time, I really enjoyed it a lot. But yeah, I think it just continues to build and get a bit better, and it is a bit more adult, I would say, in general than Naruto. So like. At least that's the way I. Apart from Shippuden is pretty adult, but like Naruto original is pretty like it's like almost like Dragon Ball esque in the like kiddie nature of it.
There are definitely some moments where it's like, because Naruto isn't gory, I would say, on the whole, but there are just some moments in Hunter x Hunter where it's like, oh, okay, this is a bit more, like you said, it's just one step up in adultness from Naruto.
Yeah, a bit darker. That was like My Hero Academia, very kiddie for the majority, and then towards the like later seasons got pretty dark, which was welcomed from me at least. Nice. The only thing I'll update you guys and you, Mike, on my end, I think people will be interested is with Ada. Just a brief update on her. So in herself, she's really, really well, almost too well. I don't know if I mentioned it last time about her taking the steroids. So they are making her ravenous generally, like she can just eat the world. For whatever reason, she, similar to me in some ways, just poops it out. So, like, when I get to peak mass, I just end up being a pooping machine. She just poops, like, every walk, multiple poos. So, anyway, so she's not putting on weight, really, which is good, I guess. But she'll probably end up losing weight at some point. But in the evening, she's a nightmare. Having looked up the steroid that she's on, it's quite common for aggression and for, like, I think it's like an element of discomfort, like she doesn't know what to do with the energy and what have you. But when Charlotte gets home in the evening, she's just like barking quite constantly and quite assertively at Charlotte. Not that she'd ever be aggressive, but it comes across that way. And man, that is not fun to deal with. So I'm hoping when we next see the vet, we can kind of reduce her dose, maybe. It's like you pull back that, but then that might have unwanted consequences to like the anti-inflammation and things like this. So yeah, I don't want to change her nature so that she's not enjoying life and then we don't enjoy that time with her either. I just want to make sure, yeah, she's as much herself as possible. But in the day, she's lying behind me there. She's just completely chill, her normal self, apart from being ravenous. She's completely fine. It's just of the evening, she's a nightmare. But the thing I haven't updated was I think we're trying to decipher between if it was a B or T type of intestinal lymphoma. It was inconclusive. So either they didn't get enough to test to know which one it is, which you want it to be B, or, and what they think more likely is that it's a very rare form of intestinal lymphoma. And unfortunately, that is the prognosis is not good. It means even less time. So we're taking every week as it comes. Just have to see. It was very nice yesterday. Our dog sitter, who we've had when we went to like the Maldives, when we went on our cruise, who stayed in our house and looked after Ada for like a week. She was just like, "Hey, I want to free of charge take Ada out for a day. I'd love to be able to do it." And so yesterday she took her out for a day and like took loads of photos and did loads of stuff with her. And yeah, our dog sitter just absolutely is obsessed with Ada and loves her so much. So I want to get her a little gift at some point because it was very nice for her to do that. And so, yeah, anyway, that's the update on her.
That's amazing. Do you think would you do any kind of like photo shoots or holidays at all, do you think? Or are you just gonna kind of stick to the normal?
A photo shoot, like I like the idea of it, but I just don't think Ada would enjoy it. Though we wanted to get her hair cut because she looks better with it trimmed, but she hates getting a haircut. So I'm like, I'm not going to make her have a haircut. I don't think she'd enjoy a photo shoot, and I don't want do that and have them, like every photo, I just look at it and be like, Ada wasn't enjoying that or whatever. Like, I don't know if I want to put her through that. And the same with a trip. Like, I don't want to be away if something turns. That's what they're basically saying is when she does turn for the worse, it's going to be pretty assertive. And I don't want to be away, not close to home, to be able to kind of get her aid and stuff. So it's a bit of a tricky situation. Also in August, I'm meant to be going for like a week for my dad's 70th in Kent to celebrate. But we just don't know where. Ada's literally got a chemo the day before we're meant to go away. And I'm just like, she might have to be sedated for that. If she's sedated, she's a like leaking mess. So it's just adding like a element of uncertainty to life at the moment, which is, it's a stressor, but again, it just is what it is at the moment. Nothing we can
Yeah,
do.
definitely. And how, on a slightly different note, has leg training been progressing quite nicely this week?
Yes, so I actually got to the point where I did my leg training, my first leg session for this week, and performance was all up from weeks prior. And I actually did my 2 sets of hack squat, and I got an extra 5 kilos on last week and an extra rep. And I think maybe 2 extra reps on my second set. I was like, and I took those. I already was like, hey, I've added 5 kilos and a rep. And I pre-planned that thinking I can just feel, when you can just feel you're adapted and you're able to perform at that level. But I was like, I'm not going to push it past that point because I don't want to, if you suddenly jump load or reps, especially dealing with an injury, not smart, but generally just for progression's sake, it's not worth like taking everything there and then. Take what you need and don't take any more kind of thing is what I was aiming for. But I did my 2 sets after I'd already done my 3 sets of leg press, 4 sets of leg extensions. And I was like, I feel like I could handle more. Like I just was like, I was tempted to add, and I was just like, just don't, because previous weeks, every session, I'd been going in a little sore in my quads because they just hadn't adapted to things yet. Not so much that I couldn't perform, and the soreness kind of dissipated as I warmed up. So I was just like, hey, if I don't get sore from this and beat up, then I know I can push more assertively on. So I think probably similar to you, I'll end up running my leg training like this until I deload at some point, because I want my knees to be feeling fantastic, and then a deloads are going to make them feel really fantastic, and then I can start a whole new block. Versus if I think if I try and jump into where my leg training was many weeks ago, it will set me back. I don't think I'll be neurologically prepared for that loading and for that technique, and I think that will end up me just leading to me potentially risking injury and setting myself back again. So it's like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm providing the quads the stimulus, so let's keep moving it forward. Hamstring training is going as great as ever, so I can't complain about that. I just finished today my first session of week 18 of this mesocycle, so and I still feel fine. Like, I have this with clients now, especially as we've been running longer mesocycles, especially for clients who have lower stress lifestyles, to put it that way. They get into some weeks of training, it's like, I don't know, they could be 8 weeks into a mesocycle, and it's like tough. Their perceived recovery is like maybe just adequately recovered. But then they do it again and they're like, I feel better. Like, you think fatigue accumulates, but the repeated bout effect also kicks in. So almost like ameliorates some of that fatigue, and they can deal with it better. I've just found my body's become very resilient, and it can just kind of keep pressing on. I think you've probably found similar.
Yeah, definitely. Like, it's a weird sensation. You just kind of, you're recovered and you're like, no, I can keep going again. Yeah, it's a strange sensation. I think a big thing is not noceboing yourself. You've just got to right, how is my body feeling? Hey, it feels okay. I feel ready to perform. Right, we go again. You kind of forget the number the number of weeks it is in the mesocycle, etc. Like, let that go straight out of your head and just focus on how you're feeling in this moment and just on performance.
Yeah. Focus on what's actually happening in front of you versus what you've heard or what a textbook might say. And I now completely understand the anecdotes of people being like, first of all, they say they don't deload. They typically mean they don't do like a structured deload. They take a week off now and then half a week. They go on holiday. They don't train, sort of thing. But if that's happening like 4 times through the year, where you're having like a weekend away, so you don't train for half a week, or then you have a whole week holiday, or even 2 weeks, well, suddenly you have these intermittent breaks of basically deload periods. I'm not saying I'll be able to just string training forever going forward. And obviously I've had to do some modifications to training anyway to keep fatigue down and manage some of these niggles. But yeah, I kind of get where those anecdotes are coming from now, where people might say it's similar to people who are like, yeah, I always train to failure. And what they mean is, most people saying this, they train to their perceived zero RAR, not actually concentric failure, couldn't do another rep.
Yeah, absolutely. And they might just have, their recovery is on point, they're doing good jobs outside of the gym. And also, um, I don't know, that again, they've maybe just their body has adapted to the amount of volume that they're doing, and and they're not kind of doing anything drastic. Whereas, like we've talked about before in the past, probably what we've done in the past is we've continued to add volume and that just becomes unsustainable essentially at the given intensity that we're pushing. Whereas now we're being relatively static with our sets, but we're just focusing on that progressive overload and the failure point, proximity to failure.
Yeah, the way I analogize it is like pushing gradually close to that cliff edge. You got a great view. That's where you want to be. Don't push yourself over the frickin' edge just because someone said you should, I don't know, whatever, like more is better at some point. Like that arbitrary thing. Like, well, of course you're going to have to clamber back up and deload and pull yourself like back up. Just kind of get to the edge and then milk out as long as you can, enjoying your time there,
I love that analogy. That's so good. And so, yeah, so appropriate. It's like, get to the edge, enjoy your view, but whatever you do, don't go over that edge. Just stay there.
And I mean, life happens, right? You might stumble, you might push a bit more than you intended to, and you slip and you have to pull back a little bit. But yeah, that analogy works. I'm glad.
Did you just make that up on the fly?
Yeah.
Right, save it. You can save that. All the clients are going to be
that
hearing
could be the
that
short
from now.
that we use for the episode.
Exactly.
Should we get to questions, or is there anything else?
Any current affairs on your end?
If you have any, you go for it, because I don't think I have anything major. Like mine's just my social media feed and then what dings in my head of things I can remember. So
yeah, again, it was obviously Brandon Kempter. He's earned his IFBB Pro card,
Ding.
and he's not going to compete. He's going to go straight into an off-season improvement season now and see what happens going down the IFBB route, which is exciting.
Yeah, it's unfortunate with the WNBF. They don't let you. I don't know what the ruling is precisely, but I know if you accept a IFBB Pro card, or any, I think it might be any Pro card, but I know at least it's IFBB. If you accept that, you can't have a WNBF Pro card. I don't know if that means you can't compete with the WNBF. I don't know that specific side of it. It wouldn't make sense to me that you could if they wouldn't give you a Pro card. But for Brandon, there's no point because he wants the WNBF Pro card. And I respect his decision there. I imagine it wasn't an easy one because, like he said on his post, he was really looking forward to. And that was like, it's kind of similar to me where I got my not like it's a different story, but I got my pro card in the Netherlands, which wasn't really, it wasn't part of my plan. I didn't expect to get a pro card. And then that completely stopped me compete at the UK FBA, the WNBF Supernaturals I couldn't do. So it's just, I wanted to accept the pro card and that was the consequences. Similar here with Brandon, the IFBB pro card is more prestigious, and for him it has more pros than continuing on to compete in the WNBF in that sense, which I'm excited for him. And dude, his physique just looked absurd. Like I mentioned, Benjamin Schuster-esque, like that rear definitely, like it shredded, like. And it was funny because he obviously deadlifts, right? And I just looked at his erectors, I was just like, fuck, Brandon, you're going to convince me to deadlift somehow. They were just shredded through.
I know. It was that the striations look very fine. Like Benjamin Schuster's are very fine and like, and so is Brandon's. And it was just like,
yeah, gnarly physique. And I should be talking to him not next week, but the week after.
Great.
So yeah, we just kind of had a back and forth, and he said he's got a bit more free time now. He's not competing there, so yeah, we can kind of schedule a call and talk about that decision, because I think there's probably a lot of people, well, not a lot, how many people naturally turn pro in the IFBB, but there's going to be people that have to make that decision. It'd be interesting to hear why Babacar ended up coming back to the WNBF in the end. We can make logical kind of conclusions and assumptions towards why he did, but I'd also be interested to know, and I'd be pretty certain to know, that Brandon won't go enhanced, like to try and progress in the IFBB. But I'm also unsure. So is that a distinct thing, actually? This is something I should know, but I actually don't know. Is the IFBB, so Brandon's an IFBB pro. Is he a natural pro, or is he an IFBB pro and can compete with other enhanced pros? Is there a distinction between the two pro cards? Like in the WNBF, we have what's it called, like Masters pros, and we have your Open pros. They're different. So I don't know if it's different for the
Don't know
IFBB.
for certain, but it sounded like it was a enhanced IFBB Pro. That's what it sounded like. It didn't sound like he was competing in a natural IFBB competition. Because I think at the moment it's only NPC that's doing natural. I don't know how it works, but it
Yeah,
sounded like an enhanced IFBB Pro card.
yeah, yeah. That is what it sounded like to me as well, and that would make sense. It would be a bit convoluted if it was different to that. Although Brandon did talk about the fact that the IFBB are encouraging more naturals and having that side developing, and he could see that being something very productive. I'll talk to him and I'll get the insides and
Yeah.
outs. The reason I don't know is I've not had a client decide to go down that route and compete there, and I've not decided to do it, so I've never really investigated that whole side a whole lot. I've just kind of seen naturals like Babacar. There's a number of people who have turned pro as naturals within the IFBB, and some have gone enhanced, and some have continued to compete naturally. And like Babacar decided to come back to the WNBF and not go enhanced. So yeah, and some people are continuing to potentially compete naturally within the IFBB. So against enhanced competitors, it's an interesting mix. It's got to take a special person to turn pro against enhanced competitors, like, because that's that's high level, and Brandon's high level.
Do you know what Babacar had to do to re-get his WNBF Pro card? Did he have to like rescind his IFBB card or something?
Exactly.
And then
Yeah, he had to rescind it and re-earn his pro card with the WNBF. I believe he earned it in Spain, and then his pro debut was in Switzerland.
can you imagine that?
Wild.
Like turn up at an amateur show and then like Babacar's just next to you and you're like, oh man.
I think he won it in Spain and then went into there was like a pro show as well, and I think he did that and won that as
Mm,
well, which isn't surprising. Like, I can't think of a bodybuilder that's going to beat Babacar at the moment in the natural league. So
there you
crazy.
go. Yeah.
My only additional news was, and I don't think it's major news, but I saw it and I just thought it was interesting. I almost thought of to do and I might do a combination of like a bit of an Instagram feed review for a vlog for the member site, and then it'll go public, of just like things I've seen on my feed that are interesting. And one thing was, I know AJ competed in the PCA Coventry show and he won the classic short class, and this was an enhanced show, so he's obviously natural, but he was against enhanced competitors, but did classic. And so it's kind of similar to if you compete in a weight cap as a natural, like you're competing against people the same weight as you, so theoretically it kind of levels the playing field. And I think it was short, so that, and actually I think the PCA have a weight cap and a height cap, maybe, like it's a combination like they do in the IFBB. But regardless, so there's that little element which helps it be a bit more competitive as a natural. But also being classic, obviously they're looking for the judges are looking for a specific criteria that's classic. So the thing that people are upset about was the guy that came second, I believe he came second, had much more muscle mass than AJ, similar levels of condition, but people were just like, hey, how couldn't the bigger guy win? And it's like, so my brief kind of summary of this is, because I think there's not a lot to it, it's quite an easy answer of AJ was more classic, so met the criteria, so that's why he ended up winning. I think some people struggle with that side of things. I know we've had it at the WNBF UK where we've had people that are almost well, actually, the judging criteria has changed now, but there was a time where we weren't looking for the biggest kind of men's physique competitors. It was more of a slighter frame and more of that kind of beach body look, if you want to put it like that. And so big guys coming in that basically they were bodybuilders, they weren't winning. And they're like, but I'm the biggest. It's like, it's not just about being the biggest. So I think it's just, for me, it was just a good reminder for people to be like, you can't just look at the biggest and leanest guy in any category and think they've won. A big part of classics, the posing, and you can't really take that from photos online either. So yeah, it was just funny. So many people were basically ripping a little bit into AJ and being like, hey, it's just social media fame. And that's why he's got that. And I think if you think about it for a moment, you realize that that's never going to go well for the like anyone involved if they try and do it that way. Like the PCA would just get ripped to shreds. Their judging would just be looked at down upon completely if they were to reward people because of their online clout. It's similar to Will Tennyson, who obviously won his pro card and won his class. He was the best bodybuilder on the day. It had nothing to do with his social media presence. Like if the judging panel can't keep that objectivity, it's no good. So it was just a good reminder for people, I think, and unfortunate for AJ because I don't know. I think he's got a great head on his shoulders, so he wouldn't have taken too much kind of offense and wouldn't have brought him down. But it's not very nice, right, when people are doing that. It's just a misunderstanding of the judging, I think.
Totally. Everyone's going to have their own rose-tinted subjective perspective of what they think and what their preferences are, but ultimately that's not what the judges think. And I think actually it was really relevant to your recent podcast that got released this last weekend with Paul Ravella, where he was talking about, listen to the head judges because they are the ones which are going to give you the feedback which you should be aiming for. And I think that's so important. It shouldn't be about what you think is right. It's about ultimately what are the judges looking for, and that's it.
I just want to extend your point there because I think that's also a really good reminder for people that judging isn't objective. Like we try and make it as objective as physically possible, and judges are educated to know that they're following a criteria, but we aren't robots. We have our own subjectivities and we have our preferences. So it's going to be somewhat influencing our judging. And we try and keep it objective to the criteria as best as possible. Again, you can't, there's just going to be that person that's like, they just like that. If there's two people that are like first and second and it's tossed between them, if one's more shredded and you have a preference for shreds, you're probably going to go with them. It's things like that. And it's just remembering, even head judges, like you said, Paul was like, they have a lot of power because they determine the lineup. They've like first call outs, that sort of thing. They really do call that. So they have a lot of power in that sense. So if you have different like head judges, that can massively impact where you are. So yeah, it's just as a reminder for people where they're like, hey, I didn't place well at this show or where I wanted to.
Totally. But I think there is still that element of professionalism. Like you're still kind of what you mentioned about judges remaining objective. I would also class that as being professional, where you're being professional by not taking into account who this social media profile is. I think that is something which is really important for judges, that professionalism. And I think that's something, you know, um, a lot of judges do try to do as well. Yeah, definitely. it's the art to the sport, if you want to call it that, to a certain degree. It, you know, you could argue that there are definitely strong arguments for body being bodybuilding being a sport, but there is also an artistic element to it as well. There's an artistic element to it as well, and unfortunately, that is always going to be subjective. And if you were to liken it to, gymnastics to a certain degree, there is a subjective element to gymnastics as well. So it's just, yeah, it's one of those things, and it's always going to come with its share of controversy for sure. Yeah. All right. I think it's worth asking another question because I know nothing about that peptide. Cool. So I think first and foremost, one of the most important things that you've just got to remember is that you're not hungry going into a session. So for some people, this is going to differ a lot. So some people might actually go into a session fasted. So I definitely have clients where they might have a bedtime snack or they eat relatively close to their bedtime. So actually, when they get up in the mornings, they're not actually very hungry. So they can go straight to the gym. Um, but for other people, it's a different story. So I think it's hunger is the most important thing. Don't be hungry going into a session. The next thing is if you're in a, and Stevie made a post about this relatively recently, if you're, potentially relatively glycogen depleted, or, if you haven't had much food for a little while, definitely having some kind of carbohydrates in your system will be useful. And typically, kind of some of the general advice that we'd give as well is like maybe around that peri-workout nutrition window, we're not going too overboard on the fats because typically fats might slow digestion. So things typically might just sit in your stomach a bit more, which might just make you feel a bit uncomfortable. Again, it's very individual based, so that might not be the case for everybody. So I typically say, you know, making sure that you're getting in a good chunk of your calories around that window. But the first thing is not being hungry, but then like, hey, try and have a good chunk of your calories around that workout window, being a bit more carb, protein focused. Depending on the length of your sessions, you could consider intra workout carbohydrates. But it depend again, that can be a little bit more individual based. But I definitely recommend considering it. Um, so yeah, that was kind of I can tell you exactly what I do, but I don't know what your thoughts, Steve, if you want me to do that or not. So it's changed slightly since because my routines had to change a little bit. So prior to the accident, I was getting up and having a little bit of cream of rice, banana, yeah, obviously cream of rice with some protein powder in it and a banana and a coffee, and then I'd go to the gym, and typically I'd find that that really suited me well. But because it's taking it, how much cream of rice or how much? Probably like 45 minutes to an hour. Yeah, it's not much cream of rice, like maybe 60, 70 grams. Is it? No, maybe a little bit more. Moderate helping, maybe. But enough for me. It's enough. That I don't feel bloated and really full. It's like I feel satiated. But I'm not hungry going into the session. Um, but now because it takes a little bit longer, I'm pretty much going out of the house as soon, once I'm ready. But I'm having a protein shake and a banana again, so that I'm not hungry but it's just a little bit lighter because I'm pretty much then training like half an hour, you know, like maybe even 15 minutes to 20 minutes after I've had that. Uh, So post tends to be oats. I'll have 100 or so grams of oats with some berries, apple, and either a kiwi or banana. Mm, yeah. I mean, I could bolster that post-workout meal, but for me at the moment, that's always been, um, you know, it's been pretty solid. Mm, mm. Yeah, very much on the same hymn sheet as you on that. And something which I've observed, and I'm I don't want to judge, but it's just something that I'm like, that's interesting. So when I'm in the gym, there's a guy that's recently started training in the mornings, and when he finishes his session, you can see him like almost immediately eating like a Whole Foods meal. And just in the back of my head, I'm like, Huh. Interesting. Because I definitely 10 years ago I was definitely like, oh, I need to eat as soon as possible to make use of this anabolic window, and I definitely had that pressure. And I just when I see that, I'm kind of like, I wonder, is that because he thinks that, or is it because yeah, I don't know if he trains multiple times a day. I don't think so, but he might. I don't know. But I'm just like, curious. So don't steal my glory. Right. So set by set asks, oh, okay. So Sean.J.Dutton asks, so Steve, would I would be interested in you expanding on your 1 pound body weight gain over 9 weeks. Seems lower than what you typically recommend. Yeah. And I guess to add myself into the mix is like you wouldn't apply your rule to me because we know that I don't have the same physiological restrictions. You could keep feeding me and I'll keep feeling good. Yeah, exactly. And it's the same with most people, which is why we can, your rules apply to us, but it doesn't apply to you. Exactly. And there's so many variables. It's so hard to know because where, as you were saying that, I was just thinking, oh, you know, your maybe your genetics and your proclivity to gain muscle, particularly in certain areas, is could be quite good. So if you're not in as assertive of a calorie surplus, doesn't matter because it kind of evens itself out a little bit. But I guess that's probably there are so many other variables we probably can't be that specific to it. Right? And you've got to remain objective in that time because I think if I'm being totally honest, uh, subjectivity came into my head a little bit a few weeks ago. So again, prior to this accident, my weight was maintaining, and we were kind of waiting for a few extra. We were waiting to see what happened, but in my head, I was a little bit afraid of seeing the scale weight go up. But I just needed you in my corner to say, like, Mike, this is objectively, we want to improve and we need to see your scale weight going up. You don't have the same physiological restrictions as I do. And I think having you as that objective voice, I think is really useful. And yeah, so for listeners, it's like you've got to stay objective, with regards to your progress, and that will help you make the right decision. Let, yeah, definitely. Yes. Did the length and partials make a difference? I guess, and did back extensions feel fine? Because if it's just that one exercise, my head goes to playing around with a couple of things. So s- it sounds a bit weird and a little bit kind of outside the box, but playing around with the pelvic position. So typically what sometimes happens on a lying leg curl is people go into a really anterior pelvic tilt, and whether that's creating a little bit of neural tension maybe. So actually just if there's a way he can kind of like either pad the sort of support his tummy and his lower abdominals a bit more so he's not going into an anterior pelvic tilt position as much, seeing if that makes a difference. If it's nothing to do with that at all and that makes no difference whatsoever, and it feels very much more muscular tendon orientated, then similar to what you were doing for your knee, Steve, he could play around with maybe doing some isometrics beforehand, um, and seeing if just warming the leg up a little bit more, warming the hamstrings up a little bit more makes a positive change. What would be a good differentiator is if he's getting pain with any hamstring movement whatsoever, then that indicates it's probably more of a muscular hamstring specific issue. But if it's very much just that one lying leg curl machine, something tells me it's a position he's getting into that is irritating or sensitizing the tissue, which again is why I kind of initially went to that pelvis position first. So yeah, nailing it down to is it just one exercise or is it hamstring exercise as a whole will be really helpful in tackling the problem. And then you can go from there. Got it. Okay. So, and is that seated, lying? Doesn't matter whether it's seated, it's both seated and lying. Ah, okay. Got it. Got it. So yeah, I think you could go with either or to begin with. I think um does have you recently when you look at his form video for the lying leg curl machine, does it look like his kind of back's arching quite a bit with the lying leg curl or not really? No. Yeah, where you're kind of sticking your coccyx to the ceiling and you're getting a bit more of a lumbar lordosis. Again, have a look. Again, like a little bit's fine, but it was just if it was excessive or like notable, then it could be worth like it's just like little modifications. It's like what do you do if you just change your body for a little bit and just make a small body modification? Does that change his symptoms? If it doesn't, it was probably nothing to do with that. And actually just focusing more on get the knee warm first and equally, like we've said in the past, give the tissue a break. Maybe we just is there another different way of doing a knee flexion movement that just gives that tissue a break and stimulates it in a different way, which is tricky at Yorkies, but yeah. But does that answer the question? I think so. Yeah. So start off with those, and then if it doesn't change, then you can ask the question again, and we can bounce some more days. Yeah, we'll have a consult. That's it. Because sometimes it can, even though you think you're using your hamstrings, sometimes it can sometimes get quite easy to, I don't know, initiate from the back or the hips just to get that power generation. So yeah, have a little check of that and you can let me know. All right. So Will Raby underscore asks, can you talk more about Rhodiola Rosea? Have we? I think we've already answered this. We've talked about Rhodiola. Even more. Well, Yeah. Wow. It's a bit of a, sounds to be a bit of a titan. It's a, has a lot of positive effects, it seems, with a lot of those. Totally agree. Oh no, in fact, is it your turn? It's you, possibly. I would say for me personally, foods that I find very satiating are potatoes. A- I actually find an apple very satiating. Yeah, go on. What form of potato? Like, how do I cook it? Boiled. If I, yeah, boiled. If I kind of, sometimes I'll roast it, but I know that it's not roasting a potato or baking a potato isn't as satiating as boiling it. I'll sometimes do it just for a bit of variety. But yeah. Yeah. Apple and boiled eggs I find quite satiating. That really seals a gap. And then just vegetables in general, I would say. Those are the kind of the big hitters. And oddly enough, chicken breast I find very satiating as well. Oddly enough. Yeah, literally. Yeah, I remember. Yes. Mm. Um, it's I would say it is more I know that I'm probably dieting when potatoes come into the diet. Like that's probably a big thing. Habits. Not that I might probably do drink a bit more water. Um, I would actually um I think the only it sounds a bit counterintuitive, but as you mentioned earlier, sometimes I tend to eat a little bit lighter around the training window. Whereas if you relative to the calories that I'm on, I would say depending on soon I um how far into the diet I am, I would say that my calories get a little bit more equally distributed, maybe even a bit more heavy around that training window potentially. But other than that, not much else changes, I don't think. Mm. The having smaller bowl sizes, smaller cutlery, that's definitely something that I do as well. I completely forgot about that because I was kind of like, but that's definitely something that I do as well. And being slower with your meals, being slower with eating, again, something that I do as well. Yeah. Uh, well, there you go. If a chewing gum seems to last a long time, you know why? It's the plastic. Let's do it. I would say they're not necessary by any stretch. I think this is a little bit more anecdotal. I would have thought that they could potentially be a bit more useful for compound movements, um, owing to the fact that just that overall kind of nervous system kind of getting it ready and getting it ready to lift. I also think it would probably be a bit more useful if it's, say, either the first exercise of the workout itself and or first exercise of that muscle group that you're going to train. Whereas if, say, you'd already, you're halfway through your training session or you're quite deep into your training session, your overall body system might be quite well potentiated in general. So you might not necessarily feel the need to. Or if you've already trained that body part through other movements, you might just feel that you don't, you might not necessarily need the potentiation of that. I think there's going to be probably a high individual, difference in who benefits from this. I personally sometimes do benefit from a potentiation set, but again, it tends to be more from a compound movement, more beginning of the session type thing. Um, so yeah, so I guess I'm drawing off mine and more anecdotal experience when I'm answering that, but those would be my thoughts. And just on that final round, that point off a little bit is you meant, I don't know whether it was last week or the week before, but you mentioned about that study that Brad Schoenfeld highlighted, which is where you don't necessarily need to warm up at all for some bodybuilding purposes, because particularly if it's a higher rep range type, if you're going to a higher rep range, um, or the load is slightly less, those beginning reps act as a warm up and they act as potentiation. So if you're doing an exercise which is you're going to maybe 20 reps or so, those beginning reps might act as potentiation, so you don't necessarily need it. But again, it's so yeah, it's dependent on a lot of variables. And I was just thinking to my personal case as well for abs is I do one warm up set, but it's less to get warmed up physiologically, and it's more, it just, for me mentally, it cues me to think, I need to think about that, and it just gets me feeling it a little bit. So I do it more from that perspective rather than a like physiological reason to get warmed up for ab. I know. But we did all right. We finished the last lot of questions. So we did well. We did all right. Massively appreciate it, guys. Yeah, really appreciate the comments. Definitely. Look forward to catching up with you next week, guys. See you later.